G'day everyone and welcome to this week's edition of the Melbourne Pro Punters panel. As usual, Darren Potter.
If you jump.
Dan Kelly.
Hello, Jumpy.
Okay.
Hello, Potts.
Good to have you back too,
We've got a
Carl.
special guest this week, a former colleague of Dan and I, Mark Roden. G'day mate.
Thanks,
Welcome
Jumpy.
aboard, Mark.
Thanks, Potts.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, DK. Thanks for having us.
Affectionately known as the Rat.
He is. We've just got the rat along to tell a few stories about what the old trading floor used to be like and the changes that have happened in the industry and whatnot. And yes, it's some interesting times currently in the industry, but Rat goes back a fair way to when it was actually a really enjoyable industry to work in.
Yeah, well, you've got a great history, Rat, because you, firstly probably through your dad.
Yeah.
Dad, when I first got to the races and started as a bookies clerk, I mean, your dad was he was a very well regarded punter and things like that, and he was a time punter or something like that.
Yeah, he worked on times and weights. It was he got me into the industry, or the game in the first place when I was a kid. Dad was a teacher, but he punted pretty seriously on the side, and he was, his maths background and that, he was pretty good at it. He used times and weights. I remember, doing his time and weight rates by hand on the old Sporting Globe photo finishes, back in the 80s and stuff like that, pre-computer. Then come Thursday when the fields come out, transcribing the figures onto the...
Still made a go of it back then.
Still made a go, but...
Well, I think that people forget how much things have changed.
Yeah, I mean,
You couldn't even bet off course properly until the 2000s, I would say.
If there was any pre-post betting, we didn't know about it back in the 80s, so it was at the track on the day, and even just the method of doing the form was so laborious at first. So anyway, that was my introduction to it, and I loved it from the age of about 5.
And he used to pick the eyes out of it, and he'd sort of focus in on it, but even in the later years, when I used to see him, he'd come up, he'd have one bet. He'd come up with something to tick all the boxes or something.
Yep, he wasn't an every race kind of punter. He liked to back a good thing, but not always a favourite too.
No, he liked middle pinner, he put it back in the middle pinner.
So your dad, when was he at the races?
80s till... he still goes every now and then, but he's probably... I hope he won't mind me saying he's a lot of other days, probably on in a punting sense, but he's getting on. I'm going to get in trouble for that.
Well, it's good to see he's a fan of the show then.
Yeah, 80s, 90s and into the 2000s, and he did well over it.
And did you used to go along to the races?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I remember when... it would have been about 1990... Yeah, it was 1991, because I was in year 12, and I just finished my exams in year 12, and there was a weird Monday race meeting at Sandown. It wasn't even a public holiday, and Dad wouldn't have 1,500 on the stand. And he had to go to work, so I had nothing to do that day, so he was giving me the cash. I didn't have my licence by then. I think I might have only been 17. I got the train. I grew up in Mentone. Got the train from Mentone to Caulfield, and the train from Caulfield out to Sandown.
Yeah.
It's 30 degrees, just t-shirt and shorts, and 1,500 in the kick. And it was this thing at Colin Hayes's. It was a bit of 6 to 1, that's 7 to 1, and I managed to average 13 to 2 for the 1,500. It started about 9 to 4, won by about 5. So I've got 5 figures in my shorts pockets at this stage.
Back on the train.
Oh God! I'm walking over towards Sandown Park train station. Thought I just got to get out of here. And fortunately, one of Dad's mates had knocked off from work early and was walking in and said, "What's going on?" And I said, "This," and he said, "Get in the car." So got me out of there. But that was a long time ago. And then at the end of the 90s, I got the job up in Darwin.
Did you do some bookies clerking?
Oh, a bit of clerking, yes. Peter Barber was my man.
Sydney Harbour.
There's 2 guests that we've had that started with Peter Barber, because Mickey Harrington was the same.
Yes, well, I knew Mickey from Frankston, and Mickey and Chris Lester actually got me the job with Peter. I went to about 96 of them, so...
I used to go to a lot of meetings when I started. It was very hard working bookie.
Hated driving, you always had to drive when you worked there. Anyway,
there's some bookies. I think Jay Sable was the same. Didn't like driving, rather.
Well, then you get the opposite of going with Dean McLaughlin.
So you've had an education in form analysis, time stuff off your dad.
Yep.
And then wagering from
96,
the bookmaker that you've worked for?
Yeah, well, with Peter.
Did you get the job with Mark? What
99. I was actually moving to Darwin anyway. I had a relationship with a young lady in the late 1990s. She was a doctor. She got a job in Darwin. I thought, I'll head up there. And I rang Mark Reed's, joined Darwin All Sports. And in the first place, just got a job answering the phones. And my old man knew Dad actually taught Mark Reed at St Bert's when Mark went there
Okay,
in
so
the
there's a-
60s, I think. So there's a bit of a link. Yeah, I mean, they weren't best mates or anything, but they knew each other.
So there you are in Darwin, the doctor and the bookies clerk.
The doctor and I went our separate ways after about a year. This is how good a judge I am. She was a doctor, her mum was a doctor, and an old man was a doctor, and I bailed out. That's
There you go.
that's how smart I am.
There's a trap for young players there, guys.
God, should have had the shackles of it.
Too smart for that, obviously. Anyway. But yeah, anyway, so it was end of 99. I probably just turned 25 or so. Ended up in Darwin, and that was where I really started to learn, because I had some great mentors there. Mark himself was a tremendous form analyst, you know. I mean, we know a lot of people that worked for him, and he was a pretty volatile character.
And this was just a change over time with computers too, wasn't it? With the
Yeah,
and everything.
Mark had been a real early adopter of using computers.
Technology. He was a forward thinker, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was ahead of his time.
I can remember being in a pub in Sydney when rude ratings first started.
Oh yeah.
That would have been.
Well, I think they used to work upstairs there.
It would have been the early 90s.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But it was Mark himself and Jared Toomey, who was my mentor for many years. You know, really taught me how to rate and how to do the form.
And that's one thing that there'd be countless blokes throughout the industry and blokes that are sort of punting at a serious level that have all been taught by JT.
I got in 2008 when I started with IAS and learned on Mark, and then later, luckily, Jared came down from Darwin and carried on. But even learning stuff off the Rat was a senior guy then, so you could always run stuff by him. That was that IAS finished, I think, in 2011.
Yeah.
So I was lucky to get in for those 2 years.
Yeah.
Where I really learned that stuff, because that's all gone by the wayside now. But back then it was really, that was one of the great things about IAS was the education factor, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
John Size and Mark Shea, countless,
so many. And then we had the manuals operation. We joined forces with them later on. That was another great experience, great people to learn on.
So what year did you go to Darwin?
99.
99.
And I, with the whole operation, virtually moved back to bar the call centre, moved back to Melbourne by the end of 02. That's when I came to Melbourne.
Okay.
And
when did they join forces with the manuals?
When was that?
I reckon it was about 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
Because when I just got there, that's when I've told the story that one of my first jobs was doing video comments for Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And Mark had moved over to the Fern Court way of doing comments, which is the manuals way, that bought all their stuff.
Yeah.
And he said, sit down, this is how I want you to do the comments for Hong Kong. Like this is their stuff. And like I said, that's what stands me in good stead now, because obviously it was sensational.
Yeah.
Didn't tell
But
IP.
they were tremendous, but their approach was a little different to ours at IS, and that they were all about the post-race, and they were very thorough about video analysis.
That's what.
And they used to walk the tracks
Oh yeah.
for pre-meeting and after the
Darren
meeting.
Murphy, who now works for Darren Weir, was their long-time employee for walking tracks.
And looking at them in the yard too, and they probably had one or two other advantages which we probably shouldn't touch on here, but.
So 99 you went to Darwin.
Yep.
And so talk us through how you progressed from job to job.
Okay. Well, I got a job answering phones, taking bets, and punching them into the machine. And I've been doing that about 10 days, and look, it was just great being around the sort of racing atmosphere, but it wasn't really going to do it for me long term. And so I just started pestering people, saying, "Oh, can you show me how to do this, how to do that?" And I annoyed enough people that I think they stuck me on doing some Perth videos for a start, and then doing some form on Perth, and then I was one of Jared's apprentices on Melbourne for about a year.
Yeah, they would have kicked you right.
Yeah, and then just progressed like that, and it all happened. It happened really quickly, and it was really exciting time.
And what about the betting up there? I mean, this is sort of before the UK invasion. This is Marks was one of the first. IS was one of the first betting shops.
So in that, let's go back there. So let's say it's 2000 or thereabouts. So at that stage there was IS.
Yeah.
There was Centrebet,
yeah.
and there was number one or whatever they were called. Who else was there at that stage?
Well, most of the big makers were still track book makers.
The big action was at the track.
It was still the big rails bookies in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane.
Yeah.
And did they have phones at that stage?
Yeah.
So, and that's one thing that I remember was watching you guys. You'd be half the day was spent on the phone.
That's right. Yeah.
And it was much different to what it is now, where the bookies there was still betting back. It was sort of a bit like what it is on course, where if they've got an opinion, they'll back it back, or if they don't want it, they'll get rid of it, or sometimes they'll have more on them.
well, you know, our job description down was as a trader, and back then you actually were, because you know, the money had come in and you had to make a decision on what to do with it, you know. And if you could lay one shorter and back it back longer, that was good trading, but you know, that doesn't really exist anymore.
So there was some big action there, wasn't there? There's the fun, obviously there's the Commonwealth Bank story, there was a well-known court case that they went through.
Yeah, and you know, people were betting in, during the carnivals, you know, they could, if the guy had established credit and a big enough name, they could get on to win $500,000, $1 million in a single bet, you know, back then. It was just astronomical. It just does not happen now.
And it wasn't prize mug stuff, where it's just close your eyes like, no, Mark, I do the form and...
and we're betting to these ratings, away we go here.
Yeah. I mean, you can still get on to win a lot of money now, but you would have had to have lost a lot of money already to get that sort of service.
And it's funny because...
So there would have been no internet displayed odds at that stage. It would have all been at the phone.
Absolute infancy of internet betting. Darwin All Sports was doing it centre bet and centre racing.
With Terry Lewis.
I mean, actually, I think it was centre racing. Yeah, I think it was the first day they ever put prices up on the net was... it was in the spring. It was the Dado Town, or Fiend, as it was probably called then, day, and they used to display displayed their odds, you know, fractionally, not like 480.
It was still imperials.
And Sunline was favourite for the Fiend, and she was a 6-1 on chance, but they've typed in 4-6 instead of 1-6, and someone I was working with noticed it, and I think we just drip fed at something like $100 at a time. Countless times, and but it didn't win like a 6s on chance, but it won. But anyway.
But that was obviously before the palpable error rule that which everyone loves using now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, they'd be voided straight away these days.
Oh yeah, like you don't even get anything of that. And the other thing with the trading though too, like. The industry's funded on turnover, and when everyone was betting back and turning over, it just meant the money kept going round and round and round. And
absolutely.
They were just getting a clip of the ticket on the way through the whole time. So it's probably adversely affected the industry not having that money.
Probably.
Well, it has.
Fucking hell. Like, honestly, the problem is that this video will be watched by, you know, journalistic types and of course our main audience, which is our punters. But who won't watch it are the administrators of racing. They just won't watch this, and they don't understand that giving over control of our industry to all these foreign companies, how it's decimated the circular flow of money.
Yeah, and the tab, while they return more, aren't much better in a lot of ways, because they're more than happy to cannibalise the pool turnover for their fixed odds business, because the margins are higher on fixed odds, as everyone knows, and that's to the detriment of funding the racing too. I mean, they do stick more money back in, there's no question about that, but they're happy to cannibalise as well.
And that was another thing back in sort of, I can remember when I was sort of there, that was when the tab fixed odds was sort of really getting going, and they sort of were a bit fearless at that stage. Like, they wouldn't take, it wasn't 7 into 440, it was 7, 650, 6.
You're going to want 10,000.
Yeah, and each time you just keep going bang, 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 and it averaged the price out.
I remember years ago saying to you when they were just starting that early, you know, maybe betting on Thursdays and Saturdays meetings, and where did you want for anything? I'm saying these are the good old days.
So I can remember clearly like 2008. So just say I'd mark one $6, and the tab put up $16. Well, no, maybe that's a bit exact. Maybe let's say $12, right? And I'd start trying to back it because I'm thinking to myself, if I don't back this, the IAS boys are going to just decimate this in about. They'll be right, and then like I'd say take the $12 and it'd be $12 into 10. Then there'd be another fluctuation because it'd be IAS, one of you blokes. And then, you know, it'd be like a leapfrog all the way down to whatever it should have been.
But that was sort of the process at the time, wasn't it? Because there's different styles of bookmaking and there's punting bookmakers, and that's sort of what Reed's had always been. And it was, you guys know, you did the form and you sort of didn't put the prices up until the tab went up, or some of the other bookies, because you wanted to knock the ricks out of the market before you put your own up, and then you'd have a healthy position by the time you actually started making a book.
And unfortunately for the run-of-the-mill punter, they never really got first crack at those stakes in those markets, because it was really only set up for the big terms like we were. You know, when you had, you know, when you're organised to start doing the form, as soon as acceptance come out, and you know, you go crack.
You're ready.
You know, like now Wednesday acceptances. You know, if a guy's punting seriously, he's betting, he's working on Wednesday. He's not going to look at Saturday or Wednesday night at the absolute earliest.
Well, I could do, when I first started, what I did was I would do, like, spend Monday and Tuesday doing the Wednesday meeting. By 10 o'clock I pretty much had 95% of the bets I wanted to have, the rest were just rounding things off during the day. And as soon as acceptances come out, I'd start doing the form for Saturday.
Yeah, right.
To try and compete with.
But you'd have to
guys.
set yourself up.
You had to do
like
that.
Way, yeah.
And it was and like I always knew, as soon as there was one coming out of a really fast race, and the tab had put it up based on where it finished, not because it was coming out of a really fast race.
Right,
well, here comes the IS boys. They're just going. Well, I know the tab's going to mark you $6. IS is going to be $3.50, and by Wednesday night it's going to be about $4 for sure.
Yeah. And it was a real team thing, wasn't it? I mean, when you came down to Melbourne, and when I was there in 08, and all the boys were there, we all had our 15, 16 young blokes.
Yeah.
All was there, all working on doing the form. We'd all socialise together.
It was good fun.
You know, Saturday was a real event, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a real event on Saturday. You know, we all.
You've been there from 7:38 in the morning, still there at 6 at night, and we'd all
drink.
So of those guys, DK, sorry, Jumpy, of those guys, so you said 16 of you or whatever.
Yeah.
How many are still on the corporate side of the fence, and how many are now doing?
I think Mark, is there anyone left doing the form?
That were with us in those days, I would say 2, maybe.
Yeah, so that's a great example for the punters out there about
And
where the
okay,
industry's where the industry's headed, and it sort of creates opportunities, and it's also an issue.
Well, to sort of give it a bit of perspective, like when I first started there was a long desk at the back, and there were 2 big long oval tables that held, as you say, about 16 blokes, didn't they? And everyone sort of had screens and whatnot. And literally half the room was racing, and the other half of the room was sport.
Yeah.
Well, now I think that'd be skewed massively. Like the sport department would be a heap bigger now.
Definitely. I mean, look, to be honest, for a corporate bookmaker, that's where your growth is. And that's where they've got to invest. I don't have a problem with them doing that. The fun has certainly gone out of racing trading. I would suggest.
Oh, yeah. Big way. And it was especially on a Saturday because there was so many meetings on. So there'd be a bloke trading Melbourne, there'd be a bloke trading Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide.
When all us junior guys were doing the Kemblers and the Seymours and the Gold Coast, Matty Marshall.
Yes,
they just love the Gold Coast. It was just the Oracle on the Gold Coast, wasn't it?
And all
my playing favourites are placed on benefits.
And also, like, if there was one that was found and like you'd be in the office and you'd go up and think, oh, do you like one today? You go, what's the best? And all of a sudden you knew that half a dozen minimum would be on this same horse, and when they crossed the line, it was get
the circus that was Stabby and Adelaide, the last in Adelaide.
It was a bit of a wild show, but it was fun.
Or if I had $1 for every time I'd seen a pen thrown at a TV screen.
I think I might have been guilty of that.
I would have been right behind you.
And there was a couple of others. One who might be a crown bet now. He was pretty good at it too. There was a few pen throwers in the office that the toys went out of the cot.
I took the Lord's name in vain more than once.
But that's what it was like, and it was at that stage, it was a really, really good place to come to work. It was a lot of fun, and it almost felt like it wasn't work, like you're doing something you really enjoyed.
Well, that was one thing you love. It's hardly been work for you the last 20 years, has it, Brad?
Yeah, no, it has.
It's hard to get you to go on holidays and whatever your long service is, who knows whatever.
Well, I said for years, up until very recently, if the 15-year-old me could see what I'm doing at this age, it'd be great. Just doing something you love, and when you're doing something you love, it doesn't feel like work. But all the things must come to.
But you just said that the fun's gone out of it, so just talk us through that. The last period where all the fun. What's changed? And
well, it was a gradual thing, to be honest. It's become, guys who did the form became less valued than guys who could come up with, great marketing ideas or more innovative betting products, which in my opinion, really appeal to the recreational end, so to speak, of the market rather than the serious end. And look, everyone's after losing punters' money. That's what funds the whole game. So I don't have a problem with it, but my skills aren't really in that area. I'm a form guy, I'm a racing guy. So.
And the other thing that you would have seen too, we certainly saw there towards the tail end of our time there, was the growth of the risk department.
Yeah.
Like, when I first started, the risk department might have been, you took it in turns just about.
Yeah, just to sit.
And half the time it was just, whip it through and we'll sort it out. Okay, well, he's back in this, we better have something back. Well, that's what it sort of was compared to what it is now.
The increasing sophistication of the risk departments, probably everywhere, but certainly where I used to work is one of them. There's no question it's contributed to revenue, but it's certainly making it harder for the punter every day.
So in terms of how much money they've made out of their racing team, is it increasing every year still?
I think in dollar terms it is, but they want to keep their costs under control. That's so it is still growing. Maybe not as fast as they wanted to.
Crown better probably growing themselves.
I guess I'm asking. I'm curious. I'm curious because it would occur to me that if their whole focus is just targeting that recreational market and being completely away from trading and avoiding as much smart money as they can, their turnover would have dropped surely more.
No, it hasn't dropped. No, right. No, the turnover's still trending upwards, but maybe not to the same extent as it was. But that's as much to do with increasing competition because I don't think a lot of people don't understand that sharper end of the market is tiny compared to how big the
compared to what the size of the recreational part of the market is. It's enormous.
The growth in the advertising of betting products in the last 5 or 10 years. That didn't exist when I was a kid.
No.
And you're a bit of a weirdo, to be honest, if you're into racing. When I was growing up, it wasn't a popular, thing with kids my age, really.
And the thing is, kids got taught in different ways. They got into the game in different ways back then. You sort of introduced
through our dads.
By sort of going to the races and people sort of followed it a little bit. Where now kids that are getting into it, or younger blokes that are getting into it now, it's pretty much because they've been bombarded by advertising while they've watched sporting events.
Yeah, and the number one driver of this revenue is how good your app is.
Yeah,
that is more important than anything. To get that recreational market. So the blokes drinking in a pub like this, there's a game of sport on, they're having 20 on something.
So rather than betting through the tab as they would have done once upon a time, they're now using their app.
And not only that, it's not just in the pubs and clubs and whatever. It's like if you come to the track now, everyone's either got the phone or they've got a tablet and they're looking around, and this is what the on-course blokes are finding, is that unless you are absolute best price in the world, you're not going to put this horse in. Because that's what you need to be.
So what used to be 50 or 100 bookmakers on track has now become a dozen or so corporates, and instead of cash, it's through accounts. But they've actually probably expanded the market through their advertising because
they've got war chests, or they've got a lot to spend the next one. I've heard the figures what the big 4 or 5 are going to spend in the next 12 months. It's just
the NRL partnership, betting partnership, cost $50 million over 5 years. That's a lot of money.
So that really sharp end of the market that you said is tiny,
as a proportion.
Yeah. But it seems to have a huge impact on the actual market price.
It is the only look. If someone who doesn't know what they're doing or is considered not to know what they're doing has 20,000 on one, that will not move the price at all.
No.
If someone who does know what they're doing backs to win 2,000, it's off.
Yeah,
it is off. It is as simple as that.
If you've been marked as someone who knows what they're doing, then sometimes it's even less than that to turn them off. I mean, that's just what the sort of market is now. But that's the other thing. It's you mentioned that they're trying to cut costs, but I'm tipping the marketing budgets aren't some of the ones where they won't be scaling back to save a few dollars there.
Probably not. I think some of the there's going to reach a tipping point with the promotional budgets. All the money back stuff. It's all these promos that cost a fortune these days. So there's going to have.
And they're all invoiced back to the marketing departments. If anyone, that's how it's done.
Well, that wasn't always originally the case. I can remember a couple of AFL traders there. Where one of the marketing gurus said, boys, for the first round we're going to go even money lines. And the boys have turned around and said, well, who's paying for this then? Oh, well, it's coming out of your budget. And they've said, well, we're not doing even money lines then. Yes, you are. And they've said, well, what do we do if we move it? Well, we can't win here. Yeah. So there was some, especially in the early days, there was some really odd promotional things that came through. And you have noticed that, they have been watered down. It used to be 50 or 100, but now it's back to sort of $20, and it is aimed directly at the recreationals.
And even if it's 50 or 100, it's in free bets, not cash.
Yeah,
most of the time now. So
and they love it. My dad yesterday said, I love, he's with Crown Bet, I think. I love the bonus bets.
Yeah.
And I went to a family barbecue and a cousin of mine, and she's a middle-aged woman, wanted to have a bet over the carnival. I signed up with Sportsbet. I backed Happy Hannah because my kid's name's Hannah, and I backed something else, and because first time ever I found internet betting, so
and
just
look,
that stuff.
I had a young bloke come up to me last night, and he said, I've finally got an account restricted. I said, what happened, mate? He goes, they took me off promos. And it was Ladbrokes and it was the price boost. I said, well, I know why they've done that, mate. It was because you could probably lay them shorter on the fence, wouldn't you? I've gone, well, you've given yourself up a bit there, mate. All right, well, that'll do us for part one. We'll be back in part two to discuss just the general news of what's been happening lately.